the risk of loss.
You're tuned to Mission-Driven, Volunteer-Powered, WMNF Tampa, where music, news, and culture collide.
Hi, this is Miss Julie. Our week-long fall membership drive begins at 9 a.m. on Wednesday, October 8th, and goes through 9 a.m. on October 15th. We're seeking volunteers to help take pledge and donation calls and food donors to help feed our hungry and hard-working volunteers. Restaurants, caterers, or chefs can find out more about donating drinks, snacks, or full meals by calling me at 813-238-8001 or email missjulie@wmnf.org. I can also help get you registered to volunteer. Just be in touch. Thanks.
You're tuned to WMNF Radio 88.5 FM, and this is the public affairs program called Community Speaks, and I'm your host, Patro Mobili. This is an opportunity most times to talk with you. You can take your emails, but today we're going to listen to a few people and dig deeper down into the issue of free speech, especially free speech on campus. We're going to hear some assessments from the Foundation for Individual Expression and Speech, and we'll be listening to their assessment of Florida colleges, especially in the aftermath of the takeover of Florida College by the governor, and see that as an ideological takeover. We'll also hear a conversation between the reporters who had been covering police brutality and the use of police restraints. Tried to play this earlier, but didn't get to hear it all. So we're going to play it in its entirety today, talking about the deaths that happened as a result of police restraints. And given the fact that the POTUS wants to send military guards, send state guards into cities, especially Democratic-run cities. It's a war on Democrats and war on these cities, and the idea of police restraints, given the fact that MAGA has been toxic from the beginning, has not cared about the toxic agenda or their toxic words, while at the same time trying to cancel everyone that criticizes this POTUS. So free speech and police restraints, police brutality, all of that came into play in 2020 as people moved into the streets, and especially, and including white people, moved into the streets as a result after the deaths of George Floyd at the hands of police. And I think MAGA has been upset ever since with that kind of solidarity that occurred in the streets, and have been politically fighting against that motion ever since, while at the same time ignoring the violence coming from MAGA, coming from the right. So it's all coming to a head in the United States, and we have to talk about it. And we're going to talk about it here today on Community Speaks. And we're also, since we're talking about the freedom of expression on campus and police brutality and the relationship with police, we'll hear a legacy speech by Mumia Abu-Jamal, who has been a political prisoner in this country for the killing of a police 3 decades ago. He got off death row in 2012 and addressed Princeton University in 2012, and we'll hear what he had to say then, which is still very relevant today. But come to the idea of criticizing this POTUS last week, there was some tensions between Colombia's president and the United States president. And when the president of Colombia criticized POTUS, it also said that, the guards should not shoot at citizenry in the United States when the United Nations were meeting last week. And so as a result, because of those tensions, it's that escalation of tension. The State Department announced that it was revoking a visa for the president of Colombia, Gustavo Petro, after he participated in that New York protest where he called on U.S. soldiers to disobey POTUS's orders. And the department said on social media that they will revoke Petro's visa due to his reckless and incendiary actions. And I guess the action being he joined a protest. Petro returned to Colombia on Saturday, as he was supposed to, in accordance with the decree on the delegation of powers during his absence. He said on X that he found out about his visa status upon his arrival back into the country. Take a quick listen to this story, this little drama that played out at the United Nations here in the United States last week.
There was a protest in New York City on Friday as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu delivered his address to the United Nations General Assembly. And Colombian President Gustavo Petro was there, telling protesters the history of humanity has shown us over the millennia that when diplomacy ends, we must move to another phase of the fight. But he also told protesters, I ask all the soldiers of the United States Army, don't point your rifles against humanity and disobey the orders of Trump. The U.S. State Department says it's revoking Petro's visa because he called on U.S. soldiers to disobey President Donald Trump's orders. It's unclear if the decision forced Petro to leave the U.S. earlier than expected, but he returned to Colombia on Saturday. He wrote on social media that he doesn't care about the punishment because he's also a European citizen, and he says he does not need a visa to travel to the U.S. I'm Donna Warder.
And you're tuned to Community Speaks here on 88.5 FM. Just taking a listen to that little drama that played out in the United Nations last week. But talking about disobeying a POTUS in terms of its use of lethal force on the citizenry of this country, we need to talk about that as well. And some reporters at the Associated Press had been discussing that earlier this year. We want to bring that discussion to you now. This is from the Director of News Storytelling and Newsroom Innovations for the Associated Press. His name is Ted Anthony, who hosted this discussion. It's a question and answer session on lethal restraint to deaths and an investigation of encounters in which police use force that is not supposed to be lethal but still ended in death. And he's joined by Katie Olyan from the AP. She's the AP Deputy Director of Local News Success, Ryan Foley, who's an AP correspondent, and Jeff Martin, who's an AP reporter. Keep it tuned. You're listening to Community Speaks here on WMNF.
Yeah. Jeff and Ryan, thanks for being here. You've delved into case studies around this notion of restraint and what happens when it goes wrong. And I have to say, it's a thorough and eye-opening piece of work. The message of your story overall seems to be that despite protocols, authorities react and things can get out of hand. And people would be interested in what led you to this particular journalism and what exactly is less lethal force. Let's start with Ryan.
Well, thanks, Ted. Yeah, this really does go back to the death of George Floyd when we realized we didn't really have a good handle on how many types of deaths like this occurred across the nation every year. We learned that the federal government really wasn't tracking these types of deaths. Police shootings, those get tracked pretty well. Even police car accidents that result in fatalities get tracked. But these types of deaths where police are restraining someone and someone starts to perhaps struggle to breathe and then they die, they fell into this sort of gray area where there just wasn't a lot of attention. So we decided if the government wasn't going to track this, maybe the AP could. And so we took a look across the 50 states at this. And these incidents often involve the use of a taser. They often involve physical force by police, perhaps batons, perhaps fists. And they involve restraint, where often at the end of the incident, officers are often on top of someone who is struggling or they're putting in handcuffs and they develop breathing problems and then they die. That's the type of incident we're really looking at.
Thanks, Ryan. Jeff, what was the scope of the research that you all undertook? How many cases did you look at? How wide did you go?
We looked at well over 1,000 cases. We cast a very wide net across the country. Some of those cases didn't meet our criteria, so they're not part of the project. But the ones that are, we feel confident they meet all our criteria. These are people from all walks of life, too. We found people in the suburbs, in the cities. We say in the story that there was a poet, there was a nurse, a saxophone player in a mariachi band, people from all types of occupations and backgrounds. We tried to be very thorough in identifying cases.
Can you talk a bit, Ryan, about some of the police practices that have led to fatal outcomes in these cases? It seems like in some of them, authorities don't follow their own protocols, particularly when it comes to the ability to breathe.
Yeah, probably the biggest finding we have across the whole database. In more than 700 cases, we found that police officers had used something called prone restraint, and that's where they are restraining someone face down on the ground, often putting pressure on their back or their upper back. Sometimes there's 3 or 4 officers all putting their weight on someone, pinning them to the ground. And this has been a practice that has been known to potentially result in death, particularly if it's prolonged or if someone is already having another health problem. In these cases, stimulant drugs are often involved. It's been known going back to the 90s. The U.S. Department of Justice warned police departments about this. Case after case, we found they were telling officers they couldn't breathe, and officer says, "You're fine, you're talking, you're breathing," and then soon thereafter, often they suffered cardiac or respiratory arrest and then died. So that is probably the biggest finding. There are others in this database, issues with excessive tasing, issues with unsafe tasing of individuals. There's chokeholds. There's a whole number of other things.
This type of reporting is a real challenge from a sourcing perspective, I'd think, finding the people whose stories you want to tell. Beyond records, how do you even go about finding sources for these stories? Jeff, I think that's one you have some useful stuff to say about.
Yeah, I think we found particular challenges in some states due to their restrictive open records laws. North Carolina, for instance, oftentimes the local agencies would tell us they weren't going to give us any records, that we'd have to go to the State Bureau of Investigation, which investigated the case. And in North Carolina's case, the State Bureau of Investigation didn't give us any records at all. Alabama was another challenge. They have a very restrictive open records law there. So it was a challenge, and in a lot of these cases, wherever possible, we would look for litigation. Sometimes we were able to go on the PACER, the federal government, the federal court's online system, and find exhibits that were helpful, autopsies, police reports, and things of that nature. So we did that wherever possible. We reached out to a lot of families. In my experience, I reached out to several defense attorneys, and not a single one was uncooperative. Every single one helped us in various ways. So I think that reporters will find that these defense lawyers in these cases are really passionate about the cases, and they're willing to help. So I guess that would be one of my suggestions, is to always reach out to the lawyers.
That's a good thought. So, Ryan, what advice would you give to reporters who are connecting with families of those who died? I mean, are there approaches, methods, techniques that you all used as you moved through this really huge variety of cases?
Yeah, one of the things that was striking when we talked to families was how willing and eager many of them were to share their stories. Because in these cases, since they kind of fall into this gray area, they haven't gotten a lot of attention. And oftentimes the system blamed the victims for their deaths. They shifted the blame from the police to drug use, to other medical conditions. And the families felt like the whole system was out to get them, and that they've never had a fair hearing of what actually happened. And if you are truly investigating and looking at the video and looking at the police tactics, they're really receptive to that, because they feel like they've gotten nothing but stonewalled up to this point, and they're willing to share their stories. So we really did get a lot of cooperation from families, and they had some critical records to share with us that you could only get from families in some cases. In some states, you can only get the autopsy reports from families or key medical records about what happened. So just reaching out and trying to tell their stories is a good approach.
And because I'm sure our colleagues all over are wondering, how can AP's database be a resource for local reporters? And do you have advice for reporters who want to cover these cases in their communities? And either of you can go ahead and answer, or both.
Sure. I would say take a look and see if there are any cases in our database that haven't gotten much attention, or where we maybe uncovered new information, where maybe there was just a press release from the police's perspective when the death happened, or maybe the death was never covered at all, and we have new information. Maybe we unearthed autopsy and police reports and video that put the incident in an entirely different light. Maybe there's what we learned in some of these cases is that it can take years for the truth to come out, because sometimes videos don't come out for a long time. Sometimes autopsy reports don't come out for a long time.
That's great. Jeff, anything to add?
Yeah, I would just, I agree with Ryan. Some of these lawsuits take years to manifest. And so some of the exhibits and the documents from some of these deaths that are occurring this year may not come out for a while. So the other thing is, going forward, looking into the future, these deaths, I think they average about 2 per week nationwide.
Wow, 2 per week. That's an amazing figure. Jeff Martin and Ryan Foley, thank you both. Showing what happens here is an important piece of accountability journalism that I know is going to resonate and help people too. We hope you've enjoyed this edition of Localize It for your ears, and we hope it helps you find good stories for your audiences. There are lots more of these in the pipeline on whatever topics the news dictates, so please stay tuned. Until then, I'm Ted Anthony.
And we are localizing it often here. We're going to hear more from those reporters going forward. As they said, that was Ted Anthony interviewing Jeff and Ryan. That's Jeff Martin and Ryan J. Foley from the Associated Press, talking about how more than 1,000 people died after police across the United States used force that was not intended to be lethal, but resulted in a death anyways. And you are tuned to Community Speaks. Of course, we're going to get back to the music next hour with Blaney Whalen bringing It's the Music Monday to the airwaves. Also, after before we do that, though, and after this show, we're going to get another news update from The Scoop, locally produced news right here at WMNF. And right now, you're tuned to Community Speaks. I'm your host, Patrick Mobili, taking a deep dive into what has transpired on the issue of police brutality, police use of force in the years following the death of George Floyd, and how people moved into the streets in 2020 to really show some solidarity about this issue. And I believe at the same time sparked the MAGA movement, the white backlash that wants to throw police into the streets, throw troops into the streets, and really were provocateurs during that moment of solidarity in 2020, using anarchy and violence to make the protests seem unwieldy and really discredited, which is a common practice in this country. And we're seeing the fact that they wanted to outlaw basically political correctness, especially in speech and what they say to people, how they talk about groups, how they scapegoat groups in this country, and use college campuses as their platform. And we've seen here in the state of Florida, the governor take over a college in order to reverse the, basically give it a right-wing tinge in terms of its indoctrination on campus, while at the same time claiming it was overdoing the indoctrination from the left. So we've seen this left-right divide take place, in one group that have really been on the case of both sides has been this group called Freedom for Individual Expression. And we're going to take a listen to some of what one of their representatives had to say, Johannes Warner, talking about how freedom of speech on campus is in the spotlight after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, who was shot and killed while speaking to 3,000 people at a university in Utah. Free speech was the banner that was brought to the campus of New College by the new administrators since the governor took over the reins of New College 3 years ago, and it is the banner of those opposing the takeover. And so we're going to listen to some assessment right now behind what is happening there. And before we get out, though, we'll take a listen to one political prisoner as he addressed Princeton University. But right now, political tolerance and whether or not it has waned since 2022 in this organization known as FIRE says that it has. Keep it listening right here on Community Speaks.
Freedom of speech on campus is in the spotlight after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, who was shot and killed a week ago while speaking to 3,000 people at a university in Utah. Free speech has been the banner brought to the campus of New College by new administrators since the governor took the reins of the college 3 years ago. And it is the banner of those opposing the takeover. WSLR News talked to a nonprofit that keeps track of free speech issues on campuses across the United States. FIRE is a national organization equally disliked by left and right. That acronym stands for Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, and the nonprofit was there after the state of Florida took the reins of the small New College campus. FIRE criticized the new administration when trustee Christopher Rufo tweeted that a visiting professor was not renewed because of his left-wing teaching. FIRE is also litigating against the state of Florida over the Stop Woke Act. But FIRE is equally, if not more, known for consistently criticizing liberal-leaning universities. They also produce an annual ranking of U.S. universities based on the free speech climate for students. Their 2025 ranking just came out, and it included 7 Florida campuses. Florida State University ended up in the top 3, earning a good rating. But 5 Florida campuses earned Ds or worse. The private University of Miami got a failing grade. Overall, Florida is mostly red in the latest FIRE ranking, and that's not a good color. The state schools, a mix of public and private, received a C+ on disruptive behavior, a C- on openness, a D on comfort expressing ideas, a D- on self-censorship, and Fs on both administrative support and political tolerance. Sean Stevens heads the research at FIRE and is one of the forces behind the ranking. He says the free speech climate has gotten worse.
Large uptick in controversies involving Israel-Palestine, lots of speaker disruptions, lots of groups getting suspended, having their recognition revoked, student journalists being investigated, being suspended temporarily, things like that. 1 in 3 students that we surveyed, at 34%, said that the use of violence to stop the speech, other students using violence to stop the campus speech is at least rarely acceptable. That's up from, it was at 20% in 2022, so that's a very significant rise there. Not a single controversial speaker that we asked about, so we usually ask about 6 to 8. Half are controversial liberal speakers, half are controversial conservative ones. For the first time ever, not a single one had more than 50% of students saying that they should be allowed on campus. So I think you put those two things together, and I say there's a lot of concerning results about political tolerance.
What makes Florida campuses fail?
Basically, outside of those first 3 schools I mentioned that are in the top 50, the rest of the schools in the state either have a yellow or red-white rating, so they could start there. Reforming the policies would definitely bring their scores, their rankings up, and then the state's overall, average and grade.
New College was not among those surveyed by FIRE this year, but Hillsdale College was. That's the private religious campus in Michigan the Florida governor wants to model New College after. In the FIRE ranking, Hillsdale ended up in the warning group, somewhere in the middle of the pack. So what improves the free speech climate on campus? Stevens suggests a fairly simple first step. Write down a policy and commit to it.
A number of the schools across the country are failing to do even the bare minimum to ensure that they have policies on the books that won't infringe on or won't potentially infringe on the speech rights of students and faculty. If they did that, the average grade, the average score would be higher. I mean, it still wouldn't be great, but it wouldn't be a failing grade. And this is not a difficult thing for schools to do. We're happy to work with them to reform their policies if they'd like to work with us. But a lot of schools do poorly because they're not even doing the bare minimum to protect the First Amendment.
After Charlie Kirk's assassination, campus security everywhere will probably be beefed up. That could create an additional hurdle to free speech, Stevens says.
Where I think this can become very problematic is increases in security fees could preclude events from occurring because groups may not be able to pay them, universities may not want to pay them, or, we've seen in the past some universities basically charge excessive security fees to an organizing student group to have a controversial speaker on campus, basically with the intention of we know they're not going to be able to pay this.
New College hosts a speaker series it calls Socratic Stage. Invited guests have been controversial figures such as border czar Tom Homan, Russell Brand, the British comedian accused of rape, and Epstein lawyer Alan Dershowitz. Asked about New College's response in terms of security after the Kirk assassination, spokesman Jamie Miller said the administration's priority is securing free speech. Quote, New College will never retreat from its mission of free speech and civil discourse. We will host more public discussions than ever, always with top-tier security to protect our students, speakers, and community, and that is exactly what Charlie Kirk would want us to do.
Right now, you're listening to Community Speaks here on WMNF Radio 88.5. That's just a little assessment from one organization about political tolerance and how it has waned since 2022. And Florida colleges are ranking poorly in this organization's free speech assessment. This is Foundation of Individual Rights and Expression. You can call me 813-239-9663, 813-239-9663. I see a few of you are on the line to talk right now here on Community Speak. So let's go straight away to the telephone lines. We're going to go to Tampa and see what Sister Connie has to say. Thank you for calling, Connie.
Yes, peace and power, brother. How are you today?
Pretty good.
All power and peace to our sister Asada Shakur. But
yes,
when we talk about limited tolerance on free speech, unfortunately, people have short memory, because we could talk about Paul Robeson being censored, Billie Holiday being based on her singing about the lynching of black people in the South, being a target of the FBI, Malcolm X, the Nation of Islam, the Black Panther Party, the Uhuru movement, so it didn't just rise as a result of people saying left to right or their newfound martyr being, killed the other day. This has been a pattern in America. And so I would always like to hold up the fact that oppressed people have a right, an absolute right, to talk about their own experience. And if we live here in America while most people are being walked back, dummified as to what can be said and what can't be said, we hold up right now because we don't know the history of what Sister Asada had to, what her lifestyle while she lived in Cuba. But what we do know is the fact that the sister never could receive justice in the American courtroom, and she could not definitely be provided safety by the hands of law enforcement. So peace, power, and blessing to our dear sister, and may the ancestors receive her well. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Connie, for that call. And you're absolutely right. And we do want to shout out to the family of Assata Shakur, Black liberation activist who had escaped to Cuba to escape charges that were most likely trumped up against her. She died on September 25th in Havana, Cuba, at the age of 78. So yes, we're sending shout outs to her family and people who understood her story, knew her story, and who were activists around that cause. Thank you, sister, for reminding us of that history. 813-239-9663. And of course, political violence is nothing new. And is not something that just afflicts the right, but what is new is the incendiariness. It's the idea that people were able to stand in solidarity in the face of police brutality, and how that just angers the right to see that kind of solidarity in the streets of the United States. And what we've seen is just a completely unhinged political movement inside the United States. 813-239-9663. We're going to go to Mango, talk to Brother Ron. Ron, thank you for calling. You say what?
I say blessings and greetings to you, brother, and grand rising to the people that's conscious. And thanks, Sister Connie, for that moment in time, because she deserves that. Sister should call. I'm just kind of touched because I saw the article and I didn't know something had happened to her until she just confirmed that I was, concerned about that. So she just cleared something up I had been thinking about, and I appreciate that. And that's coming from the community, because the community should be aware. I mean, I saw a little glitch or something, but it didn't explain or say nothing, or it just said something to the extent she was no longer here or something to that effect. But, yeah, power to the people, Mobile. That's all we got at this point. If we don't put our power together, we don't have anything, because the people who are in charge, they lost their mind. I mean, we got a de facto element, and the de facto element seems to be wanting and doing the undermining of the very foundation that we're supposed to be living under and by. So therefore, what they call the social contract has been broken. And when that happens, that's called de facto government. And social contract is when you have a three-tier government, each functioning in its own behalf. And it's not just one person or one ideology being permeated throughout a state, a country, a borough, or any of that. So that's where we have a conflict at, and that's where conflict began. And as the sister said, we've been trying to do stuff the right way, and then you point to that as radical. So anything you do from here on would be radical, because we're dealing with radicalism in its extremist form. And it has not just arrived here on these shores.
Right.
So, everybody feeling the blunt of their capitalist mentality. See, capitalists want to snatch the rug out after everybody can figure out what's really going on and try to get their feet wet in the programs. Then they come along and minimize everything so they can maximize on their end. That's all it is. The end to a means for certain people and groups, technically.
Yeah.
So I just want to lay that on the table, because it's we're up against a lot when they messing with our food and the water and the air and the way you live, how much it costs for your electricity, and et cetera. It can go on and on, man. It's just, they build this stuff and they create products, and some of the products ain't good as anything. I'll leave you with this. I was just watching in Africa and Burkina Faso where they was making beer out of mallet. The stuff that they make corn, they show you them eating it with their hands and stuff. Like, that's all they know how to do. But they had women making the mallet. And the dude who was over there videoing it, is not to laugh at, but he said, man, this is strong after he drank it. He said, it's pretty good. It was warm beer because she was making it. And they had other products, all kind of stuff that you could see, but you can't get here or you can't touch by design. Them people don't have a problem. There is a hustle. That's what I see when I see Africa. Everybody there has got their hustle. They don't sit around asking. They do what they do. And it's so intricate and it's unlimited. I'm just stuff products and stuff that I saw, colors, the clothing, just everything. I mean, it's magnificent. They don't want you to talk about that.
Right.
They don't want you to know about that. They don't want you to go and see that.
Definitely, Africa is a place where there's a lot of resources, rich in resources, and people do what they can to make those resources work for the people, profit the people. But that's a real understanding, gives us a real understanding as to why the imperialists of the world have constantly attacked to extract those resources from Africa.
I'm going to be there, you're 100% correct. And they can't even extract all the resources, because I saw one lady that this was her profession. She was making clay pottery. I heard Life say this, and I got to see it on the guy's little live. He was taking a little tour through there. And it's made strictly out of water and dirt. And they fire it like we do our porcelain over here. The technique is similar, but theirs is ancient. And when they made the stuff it was so beautiful, the colors, the stuff they put. I said, God, man, I just have a soul. But just that right, man, wow. And then she got it piled up from the dirt. From the dirt, literally. They talking about I come from the dirt. No, you don't. They bringing it from the dirt, bro. Yeah, and make something out of nothing.
Right.
People think, same over here. They stop thinking that the earth is yours, is God's, really. And the fullness thereof. So that's what they understand that, and they put it into action.
Right.
That's what I like to see.
And a necessity.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to leave you with that, because it's really, I just told my son I wish I could just snap and be there. I don't like this. I got to travel for this. He got to travel to get this. Well, I can't just cross. He says right there, they just lying. But anyway, I just like to jump across the board there and see what that's like for the time. Yeah.
Maybe we'll teleport at some point soon.
Yeah, mentally I'm already there. I ain't thinking about them. I really am not. I can't give my consciousness like that no more. Yeah.
Right.
All right, bro. You keep up the good work, and we'll be seeing each other sooner or later. This was headed to us getting together and doing stuff. We got to do stuff together now and then.
Right.
Yeah.
Definitely.
They came at that divide and conquer. I was going to tell you, too. I had said I was going to get off, but ain't nobody. This is very important. Before all this started with you, I was going through the VA system medically. I'm a veteran and everything, and they started putting words in that was inflammatory and very defamous. I wrote it on the papers that I got. I said, this is defamation. Because first it was a doctor, then when I went to another facility, a nurse started writing the same thing in my record, systematically, saying like you're a problem or you're inflammatory. And what it was I referred to the doctor first as a lady. I said, I was first, she might have gave me a name, she might not have started saying doctor. I said, excuse me, lady, and he called me lady. And I said, oh, okay, well, damn, I didn't know, don't be sensitive, don't get the claws in a bunch. So I said, okay, no more reference to that, but they put it in my record. Then I went to another place at the VA, and they had the nurse wrote it. I get my records and read it. And she had wrote it down talking about I kept referring to as a lady and being very disrespectful. I said, what the hell is this? So, yeah, that free speech, what you was talking about, is a little more, they taking that a little deeper than we think. They pass laws now that if you insult those people out there, they call the officers on you for that.
It sounds like they were trying to criminalize you.
They're always trying to criminalize. That ain't no secret. I'm going to tell you, for America to know, that's been the case for a long time now. Through all type of diverse situations, mechanisms, people, persons, places, and things. Yeah. When I get, maybe I get a chance, I'll tell you about the most recent one, but not on the phone.
Okay. Well, I'll be looking forward to that conversation.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
All right.
I'll be making my way around that way. I'm trying to get myself together right now. I got some people doing some clearing so we can do some growing and stuff.
Okay.
Good eatables, good edibles.
All right.
And I ain't talking about no medical. Well, there is medical. Herbs are medical, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. That's power to the people, man. I ain't got no power for this system shit. Or skill stuff.
Well, I hear you on that.
Yeah. Well, right. Yeah, you get you some more calls if you got them, but these people, man, they disconnected. And they blind, and we ain't got time for that no more. We ain't got time for you to be blind. We ain't got time for you not to understand. And I need to keep explaining the same thing. Why am I the target? Why is my people the target?
Right.
It's damn what I got and they got, and we should all be together and have a good. We're just doing pretty good. I just told you.
Yep.
They snatch the rug from under everybody. They know what they need to run.
Right. I mean, as we've seen, solidarity is the revolutionary act, especially in the context of the United States. People do not want people to be in solidarity with one another. That's too much power.
Yeah, they revolutionary took over January 6th. They did a revolutionary move with violence. Revolution
That was a
violence.
devolutionary because that was a tiny minority of people who were sore losers. Hey, thank you, Ron. Thank you for the call.
No problem. You have a good one.
You too. 813-239-9663. And we're going to listen to the commentary from Mumia Abu-Jamal. He's in prison serving a life sentence without parole for the 1981 murder of a Philadelphia police officer, but his death was overturned in 2001 and later abandoned by prosecutors in 2011. So in 2012, he gave this speech that you're going to hear today. And, but first, we're going to hear more from you. 813-239-9663. Go ahead. Caroline from St. Pete, you say what?
Yeah, hi there. Thanks for taking my call. I'm a witness to New College, what's happened there. And boy, talk about a canary in a coal mine situation. All those years ago when it first happened. And I want to, shout out local press, local media. I believe Stephen Walker from the Manatee Bradenton paper, you guys were out there covering it. And then the representative from Orlando was out there, Anna. Oh my gosh, I don't want to say Paulina Lou. I know it's not her, but anyway, I want to shout out those people for paying attention. And it's really sad how far New College has fallen. I know that they're going to start doing grades now, apparently, which was something that set apart New College. I think a lot of people didn't know. When you went to New College as an undergrad, you were basically doing master's level work, in producing a thesis and working with your professors. They didn't give A, B, C, D grades. They worked so hard with their professors closely, they would give a narrative grade about them. And it was, really a unique situation. And to see it destroyed in the way it was by those, again, the hypocrisy, thank you for pointing that out. The freedom of speech has really gone down the tubes there. And, I'm not surprised they're, I think they just want to sell it for waterfront property eventually.
Eventually.
It was such a gem. It was such a gem. And my question for you is, I know a young lady who's got a scholarship, a sports scholarship to go there. And, people just, I don't think, are very aware of stuff a lot. And I'm not sure what to tell her. I'm excited for a scholarship. But would you recommend somebody going to that college now? Thanks again for taking my call and appreciate y'all bringing up these discussions.
Thank you. Thank you definitely for calling.
And one strange encounter I want to share that really I just keep thinking about lately. When I was there, the security guards, the campus police there are wonderful. I know them. My kids went there, so I know how good they are. And these were, I made a comment to one, I'm Antifa myself, meaning anti-fascist. Mm-hmm. And he looked at me like all of a sudden I'm a danger, okay? And I'm like a 50-year-old white lady. I weigh like 120 pounds, maybe. I'm 5 foot. With a hump. And, I'm like looking at him like, what do you think this is about? So keep on spreading information. And that was wild to me.
Wow, it sounds like it.
Wow.
Yeah, he obviously didn't know what the term fascism is if he thought you were the threat.
When I said Antifa and he looked scared at me, I still laugh about that because I've never been in a fight my entire life. I've never run away.
Yeah, that's
right,
quite an experience.
Y'all take care. And then I don't know what to tell that kid. I'm just keeping my mouth shut now.
That's a hard one. I understood because you don't want them to miss out on their college opportunity. But oh my goodness, New College. Oh. Hey, thank you.
I know. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. I appreciate you. Again, keep up the good work, my friend. People are so weird today. I appreciate you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you for calling.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. That was Caroline from St. Pete. Here is Mumia Abu-Jamal with an inspiring message despite the fact that he delivered it from prison to Princeton University. Keep it tuned. You're tuned to Community Speaks.
Friends, comrades, brothers, and sisters, I write to you this day to greet you at the opening of Long Distance Revolutionary in, of all places, Temple University, the heart of Philadelphia, a place where I used to sell, as a teenager, copies of the Black Panther newspaper. That was then. We are now at a new phase of this struggle. Due to your work, I am no longer on death row. I'm on what I call slow death row. A new place, yes, but more importantly, a new phase of the struggle for freedom. The challenge before us is not to say that which is easy to say. It is to build the movement that makes freedom not only possible, but inevitable. This, I am convinced, we can do. We have more than enough tools to reach and touch others, more than enough to build this movement, more than enough to break free from the shackles and chains of legalized bondage. Let us do so. Join us. Build a movement that shakes the earth. Think about this. What the system has done isn't about me. It's about you. They want to destroy, weaken, or scare you off. They want to stop you from organizing, from building, from being. That's because you are all examples of resistance. You are all examples of the simple power of people saying no. Never underestimate that power. So say no to the death penalty. Say no to slow death row. Say no to the prison industrial complex. Back in September, I told you all that we are the people. We are the people that can roll back mass incarceration. We are the people that can roll back the growth and abolish solitary confinement. We are the people that can change the world as it is to the world that we need to come into being. Join us. Build the movement. On the move, long live John Africa and long live the struggle to bring change. I love you all. This is your brother, Mumia Abu Jamal.
And this is your other brother, Patro Mabili, hosting Community Speaks right here, taking your telephone calls here on WMNF 88.5 FM. We're drawing close to the end of this program, but we've been trying to bring some assessment to free speech in this country, especially in the state at New College, as it is playing out at New College. How Florida, since 2022, has become less tolerant. Political speech, political tolerance generally has waned in this state. But Florida colleges are ranking poorly by at least one organization for its free speech assessments. We didn't even touch on the speech of professors and how it's being rolled back by the state. So this is a real sad state of affairs here in Florida, but in the United States generally, as the POTUS is sending troops now to the state of Oregon, and I think this is probably in keeping with this thinking on the right that Portland is a bastion for anti-fascism or the Antifa organization. So he's sending troops there. Meanwhile, there was a firebombing in Michigan, I believe it was, and I don't think there's any government response to that. This shooting that took place there, and it left a fire, 4 dead, 8 wounded. So this POTUS doesn't have answers for that. Doesn't have answers for mass shootings. Doesn't have answers for gun violence, or doesn't want to deal with police brutality. It is upset that there was so much solidarity in the streets of the United States. They had at least one emailer who wrote me to remind me that George Floyd was not killed by MAGA. Nobody never said that he was. But this emailer wants to point out that it was a liberal Democratic police force appointed by a Democratic mayor in a traditional Democratic state of Minnesota. And I do believe this is why some police officers with bad records target such cities, so that they can act the way that they act, commit these acts of police brutality in democratic cities. So I think there's been a target on democratic cities all of this time, and this POTUS is just digging down deeper on that politically. This is going to be one of those issues that we're going to continue to argue about and fight about, but I'm certain that MAGA got its fuel from the fact that there was so much solidarity in the streets in 2020 during the first term of this POTUS. And so that was an issue he couldn't deal with then. And then there was the issue of COVID that he didn't know how to deal with, called it a hoax at first until he got it. And then, we have now this attack on his political opponents, this program of vengeance, firing people left and right, going after political opponents. This is one of the worst periods of U.S. history, but as has been pointed out, when it comes to political violence, this is nothing new. This is something, especially if you are progressive or if you are a black leader in this country, you could be targeted. We have been targeted many, many times. And so we're going to continue to talk about these issues and have to deal with these issues and face these issues. So you're going to be better off if you keep it tuned right here to WMNF. And here on Community Speaks, we're going to continue to talk about and bring some assessment and analysis to all of these issues, put it into some kind of perspective as I take your telephone calls and your emails. So we're going to keep doing this, and I'm not tired yet. So we got a long way to go. But right now, I'm going to get on out and make room for getting back to the music with It's the Music Monday. But first, we got to get news update from The Scoop, locally produced news right here at WMNF. And, of course, I'll also see you on Sunday with Sunday Forum, but I'll be right back here next week on Community Speaks. Comes your way each Monday at noon. But right now, we're going to get on back to the music after we get more news updates from The Scoop. Keep it tuned right here to WMNF Tampa.
Patrick from the Black Keys. You're listening to WMNF 88.5 Community Radio.
Your news, your views, your values. This is WMNF Tampa 88.5 FM.
You're tuned to Mission Driven, listener supported WMNF Tampa.
This is The Scoop for Monday. I'm Sean Canan with the WMNF News headlines.
The Clearwater City Council will consider renaming Court Street to Charlie Kirk Way at its meeting tonight. According to an agenda posted on the city's website, the item was introduced by Councilmember Ryan Cotton. The meeting begins at 6 and is open to the public in the first floor of the main library at 100 North Osceola Avenue in Clearwater. Governor Ron DeSantis signed a death warrant on Friday for a man convicted in the 1998 sexual assault and murder of a Northwest Florida attorney who was his neighbor. This continues a pace of 2 executions a month in Florida. Norman Grimm is scheduled to be executed October 28th and could be a modern-era record 15th inmate executed this year in Florida. The state has executed 12 inmates, with Victor